In this video, I'm going to create a new performance by combining parts from existing performances. I'm going to want a piano part, some pad, a bass, and some drums. I'm going to start with category search to find the piano sound that I want to act as the basis for this performance. You'll note that in the category browser, some performances are noted in a different color. These green performances use a single part, while the others that are shown in blue use multiple parts. That distinction is not important for now, but it will be useful later. Let's audition some pianos. I'm going to select the imaginary upright, whose name, like many other performances, has a subtle nod to the song in which an instrument that sounds very much like this one was used. If we return to Performance Home, I can see that this performance uses 3 parts. I'll go into more depth about how parts are used in a future video, but for now we can see that we have 5 empty slots to play with. I want to add bass sound now, so all I have to do is click on the next empty part and I'll be taken straight to the category search system, just like when we loaded the whole new performance. The fact that we have the same interface here, showing the same performances, is because of the unique design of the montage. Most synthesizers allow you to create a multi-timbral arrangement, whether they call it a multi or a scene or whatever, and they have a hard distinction between the container that arranges the sounds across the keyboard and the sounds themselves. Montage does not. The performance contains the arrangement, the control assignments, and the sounds themselves, so while most synthesizers will have you load sounds or tones into a multi, Montage has you load parts from other performances into the current performance. We'll talk more about that later, but for now, let's find an electric bass. I can play each performance as I select it, and you can hear it along with the existing parts of the performance. I could also mute those parts if I wanted to, but I'll do that later. I'll pick up the pre-amped AF1 performance, which I can see just has a single part because of its color, and then return to Performance Home. Now my performance has 4 parts and they play across the entire range of the keyboard. But I want to limit the bass to only play in the lower registers. So I'll click on the G8 for the bass part, which represents the upper limit of the keyboard for that part. I can then use the data dial to select a note, or I can press the keyboard button and then press the note that I want to be the upper limit. Do remember, if you do that, to turn off the keyboard switch again, because otherwise, every time you play a note, it will be set as the new upper limit. So we'll set that to this B1 and turn off the keyboard switch. Now my bass part will only play up to B1. It's possible to get an overview of the keyboard split layout by pressing Performance Home several times until you get to showing 4 parts with the split overview. We can see that the first 3 parts are occupied by my 3-part piano, and they cover the entire range of the keyboard, while part 4 is my bass, and we can see that it's limited to that B1. Let's come back out of here again to show all the parts, and I can see that I have 4 remaining. So let's add a pad. Once again, I'll click on an empty slot, and I'm brought to the category search view. I'll select my category as pad and analog, and this time I want a single part performance. So I'll scroll down to make sure I only see green ones, and let's check a few of these out. We'll go with Analog Shine. So I'll just press Exit to get back to Performance Home with the part still selected. I think that the keyboard split overview for that is going to be fine. I want it to play for the entire keyboard. So let's leave that as is. But I still have 3 parts selected, so let's add even more pad. Let's go for something warm this time. I can see that the Apollo pad, which I particularly like, is multi-part. So I'll bring that in and show you what's happened. These two new parts have come from Apollo, and once again they are covering the entire keyboard. But this part is currently not playing, and the reason for that is that it's actually controlled by an assignable knob. So let's go in here and see which knob that is. I can see that these two knobs are labelled as assigned. So one of those knobs brings up an ooh, and the other one brings up a much lower ooh. So I want to bring those in, but I don't really want this part. So what I could do here is delete that part and just carry on with this one, but I'm going to show you how to bring in a single part from a performance. So let's select these parts and delete them, and then start that process again. So we're going to click on an empty slot, and I will pick up a pad that is warm. There's Apollo. But before I exit the screen now, I'm going to change the source from all to just part 2. And then press exit. And now I just have part 2 brought in from the Apollo performance. And once again, we can use the assignable controls to bring up the levels of those choir parts. I'll set the keyboard range for that to just my right hand. So let's use the lower limit, hit keyboard and press middle C. And so now I should have the bass in the lower part of the keyboard, the first pad across the entire keyboard, and the upper pad only from middle C upwards. Finally, I'm going to bring in a rhythm part for this performance. Now you could select the part, go and choose a drum kit, add arpeggios to it and do it the long way round, but Yamaha MONTAGE and MODX both have a shortcut to get you started. On MODX there's a dedicated rhythm pattern button, whereas on MONTAGE and MONTAGE M you need to press a shift combination. On MONTAGE it's shift and controller sign. This takes us to the rhythm pattern interface, where you can see all of the installed drum kits on the synth, and when you select one, it will give you a suggested arpeggio or even a group of arpeggios to play with. And as soon as you start playing the part, you'll hear the rhythm part start. So let's change over. I think we're going to go with something electric. Now if we want to change the arpeggio of that before we add it to the performance, we can just go into category search here and listen to a selection of different arpeggios to control that drum part. Well, I think I've thoroughly messed that up, so let's go and choose something else. That'll do. Let's press exit, I think, to come out of there, or will that cancel it? No, that's added. So here we are, we now have 3 piano parts for that multi-part performance, followed by our bass, our first pad, our next pad, and the drums. Let's stop the arpeggio and save the performance. I'm going to hit store, store as new performance, and I have to give it a new name to distinguish it from the original imaginary upright that we based this performance upon. So let's call this demo will do, demo perf, hit done, and that's now saved to the user bank. And that's it. Let's finish up by adding our new performance to our live set with Shift Live Set, and we'll find the page that we created, although I think I might have actually deleted it in the meantime. So we'll just stick it into this page here, and we're done. In the next video, we'll look in more depth at how to control parts with the keyboard.